What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 302 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, September 11th, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Obviously, today's video is dedicated to all the lives that were lost on 9/11 18 years ago today. It's amazing to think it's been so long since then. I was in first grade when it happened, but the impact still remains. So thoughts, condolences, prayers are with those who were impacted by the tragedy 18 years ago today. As far as #AskGSM, you guys could send in questions to the show every single Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. If you want to send in a question, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Send them in via Facebook as well, facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So, yes, I was at Raw this past week. I'll talk all about that more in detail on WrestleRant Radio tomorrow. Not only was I at Raw at Madison Square Garden, no, I wasn't at SmackDown, but I did go to Citi Field real quick. It was a hectic day on Monday, and Alexis and I knew, because she had class on Monday afternoon, we knew if we were going to make it to the Citi Field autograph signing with Kofi Kingston, Big E, and it was supposed to be Bayley, but it ended up being Mandy Rose, which was fine, that we had to hustle. So we made the last possible train to get there in time to Citi Field. We literally made it within seconds of meeting them. I got the picture. It's up on my Twitter and my Facebook. It's all over the place. I'll talk again more about that in detail on WrestleRant Radio tomorrow at the start of the show. This is all about answering your questions. But there was one other thing I did want to address real quick. That Raw was great on Monday. And that, so I was throwing this around yesterday because I was thinking about SmackDown moving to Fridays in about a month, 3 weeks. NXT going live on Wednesday starting next Wednesday. And I started to think to myself, what if we moved the show, #AskGSM, to a different day of the week? And I wanted to ask you guys. I might pose this question on Twitter as well. If anyone really cares, is interested, it doesn't, whatever really works. I would love to know what you guys think, though, for anyone who listens to the show on a weekly basis. Do you like the fact that it's on Wednesdays? Obviously, now it works because Raw's on Mondays, SmackDown's on Tuesdays, the pay-per-views are on Sundays, so I can answer all the questions in a timely manner. They're not, outdated or irrelevant. For a few years, actually, in the first 3 years that we were doing #AskGSM, I would do the show on Mondays before Raw. I honestly don't know how I ever got that done, just because Raw would be airing that night, and it would be tough to, do the show before Raw because some of the questions would be outdated by the time Raw was over. So I don't know how I ever was able to do that. But then we moved it to Wednesdays at the end of 2016, at the beginning of 2017, when SmackDown had moved to Tuesdays. It just made the show a lot easier to record and stuff on Wednesdays. Made Wednesdays a busy day for me, but, it's still great nonetheless. Now I could just kind of record this and WrestleRant Radio in one full swoop on Wednesdays. But now that SmackDown's moving back to Fridays, and we're going to have NXT on Wednesdays, Raw's obviously still will be on Mondays. That's still going to be on Mondays. Should I continue to do the show on Wednesdays, Wednesday afternoons, like I have been for the last, 3 years now? Or should I move it back to maybe not Mondays, because I feel like Mondays are a little hectic, and getting it up in time for Raw that night can be really sometimes stressful. I know I had a few issues doing that when I was first airing the show on Mondays a few years ago. It was tough because I would have to record the show, process the video, upload it to YouTube, all within before Raw went live. And then by the time Raw went live, sometimes the video wouldn't be even relevant anymore. So Mondays are probably not a great option, but should I keep it on Wednesdays? Should I move it to Saturdays? I like it on Wednesdays personally. As of right now, I will not be switching up the schedule in terms of when the video goes up. I feel like gathering questions on a Friday night would be tough. Then again, watching SmackDown on a Friday night is going to be tough, but, asking people for questions during the week seems to be a lot easier and a lot more effective than asking people for questions on a Friday. But maybe it would work. I don't know if you guys would be around willing to answer, rather send in questions on a Friday for a Saturday morning show. So let me know if I don't hear anything, if I'll just keep it the way it is. That's currently what I'm planning on doing. But if you guys have any other ideas as to what day I should do the show, maybe not Fridays before SmackDown. It's the same thing, with Raw and Mondays. So it's either probably keeping it on Wednesdays are moving it to Saturday mornings, which, again, I like it on Wednesdays. I get more freedom and more time to do it. Saturdays are a bit more open for me, so it could work, but it really all depends on what my schedule is on any given week, or weekend rather. Some weekends I'm away, like in a couple weeks I'll be away in New York City for a few days at the end of the month, so it's a lot less likely I'll be away on a Wednesday than it would be on a Saturday, so it's tough to record on weekends like that too, and I hate pre-taping it, but I'll do it when I have to. So that's just really something I want to throw out there for your guys' thoughts, and if I hear anything back, if we get enough suggestions about when the show should be going up, if it's not Wednesdays, maybe I'll consider switching it within the next couple weeks, months, whatever, by the end of 2019. So with all that out of the way, let's get to what you guys came for, your questions being answered by yours truly. Our first question comes from Brandon A. from YouTube. His question was, only one non-wrestling question this week. Since the time I took off writing in questions, I have become a coaster enthusiast. Here in Ohio, we have an amusement park called Cedar Point that is known to be one of the best amusement parks in the world with 18 roller coasters. It wins awards in the amusement theme park industry in many categories, including Best Amusement Park, and these awards also factor in Disney and Universal parks, which is pretty impressive. One of my new bucket list goals is to, at some point in my life, be able to have ridden at least 500 roller coasters. There is a great wooden roller coaster at Lake Compounds in Connecticut called Boulder Dash that I would love to ride, as well as a great steel roller coaster called Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags in New England and Massachusetts that I would also love to ride. My question for you is, have you ridden either one of these rides since they are close to you, and are you a fan of roller coasters and amusement parks in general? I fucking love questions like this, by the way. I know it has nothing to do with the wrestling, but when you guys get, send in non-wrestling questions, you guys always get it right. Whether it's about a TV show or a movie or something like this. I don't think I've ever gotten one question, and don't break the streak, don't be that person, about, politics or anything like that, because I know nothing about that shit. Not that I don't care, but, it's not my place to talk about politics here on a show like this. No one wants to hear me talk about politics. I'm a wrestling guy, you know? But I love answering questions like this, too, that I just... It's kind of off the cuff a little bit. It's not wrestling related, but it is something I am interested in. I'm not a big roller coaster guy, so I've never been a big roller coaster guy, dating back to when I was I know I'm not old, but when I was younger. I'm 24 now. Dating back 10, 15 years, I was never a big roller coaster guy. I would hate to ride even the smallest of roller coasters when I was a kid. I was terrified to go on Space Mountain at Disney World in Magic Kingdom, which is a great fucking ride. Space Mountain, I've grown to love it. I love that ride. I rode it about, for the first time, maybe when I was 10 or 11, and I didn't like it. I tolerated it, but I didn't hate it. And then as I got older, I kind of got over my fear of roller coasters. But it depends on the coaster. It really does. If it goes too fast, then it kind of doesn't really do much for me. If you go in a loop or go backwards, I'm okay with to an extent. Any loops, I'm not there for it. I am not there for that at all. I'm not a loop guy. I will go fast. I will do drops to an extent. If there's a lot of drops, maybe not really, but Space Mountain has drops, and not a lot, and they're not extreme, but I'll do it. The log rides, the log film rides where you go down this giant drop, Splash Mountain in Disney. I'm not a huge fan of those, but once you get over the initial, fear that you're dropping, you know you're going to be okay. And it's just an adrenaline rush after that, so I've kind of grown to love those rides as well. So I don't love roller coasters by any means. I could never do what you have set your mind on doing in riding 500 roller coasters, because I probably, in my mind, can't ride at least half of them, just with my fear of loops and shit like that. That being said, I went to Six Flags. I've been there, I think, at least a few times. The last time I remember going was a while ago, maybe 8 years ago. I went with my dad and my brother. And even at that point, I wasn't a big roller coaster guy, so I don't think I went on any coasters then. I definitely did not go on this Wicked Cyclone, which may be new. I don't know if it was there back in 2011. I'm not sure. You would probably know better than I do. I know I've heard of it. Again, it might be a newer ride. I heard about the Superman ride and how a long time ago people fell out of the fucking ride, but I mean, that's really one in a million chance of happening. The chances of that happening are so slim that you can't get your mind, wrapped up in the fact that, or in the idea that, oh man, this is unsafe, I'm going to fall out, or I'm going to die. Like, that's so unlikely, you can't get wrapped up in that. I just don't like the feeling of going upside down or going too fast. Like, I don't think I would ever do rock and roller coaster. I'm not even a big Tower of Terror guy. I tried it, and I don't think I'll ever do that again. I don't like the drops. I really just hate that feeling. I hate when my stomach has that feeling. People live for that shit. Maybe you live for that shit, Brandon. I don't. And I know rock and roller coaster, I think, does flips. That goes really fast. I don't know if I could do that one. But I know I'm talking about Disney here. I definitely have never gone on Wicked Cyclone. I think I've heard of it. I got to go back to Six Flags at some point. It is relatively close. Maybe about 2.5 hours away. I'm surprised I have not been back there since. Lake Compounds, I'm very happy you brought up. Not only is it closer to me, it's maybe about 45 minutes away. It's not far at all. I almost went a couple weeks ago with Alexis and my family, but we ended up going to a different water park instead, a different roller coaster amusement park called Lake Quasi, which is like a little kiddie version of Lake Compounds. We were with my 6-year-old sister, so... And they had roller coasters there, too, like a wooden roller coaster called the Warrior or something like that. Not Ultimate Warrior, not to be mistaken with that. But that went pretty fast. That was an adrenaline rush. Lake Compounds is a lot of fun. I really enjoy Lake Compounds. There's a lot of stuff to do there, even for someone like me who's not a big coaster guy. They have a lot of cool rides, including Boulder Dash. That is their signature ride. It's been around forever. And you could tell it's been around forever if you've ridden it once. If you've ridden, I don't know what the exact, I'm a fucking journalist and I don't know what the exact usage of that word is when it comes to past tense, whatever. If you have gone on that ride at least once, then you would know, okay, this thing has been around forever because it is so fucking reckless. That is the only word I can use to describe Boulder Dash, okay? Because this thing whips you around. It feels like you have fucking whiplash by the end of it. It's not that it's unsafe. It's more that it's so rickety and rockety and it's been around for so long. It is a wooden roller coaster, okay? It flies you around. You're not going to fall out, but you're like going on these bumps or you're going on these like little mini hills at the end of the ride and it's like fucking jerking you back and forth, back and forth. You feel like your neck's going to break in two. Now, again, it's very fun. I went on that for the first time about 10 years ago. Again, not being a big coaster guy, I think I was convinced to go on by like my mom or something. I was terrified at first. And it was a bit scary initially just because you're going really fast. You go down this drop. You're going, all on these turns and drops and stuff like that. At the end of it, I'm like, holy shit, that was fucking awesome. I have to do that again. I think that was when I first started to get over my fear of roller coasters. Just because it was so fast and it gave me such an adrenaline rush. I don't think I've ever been on that ride and not gotten an adrenaline rush by the end of it. It was so much fun. Again, reckless, and my neck was killing me after the fact. If you have any neck issues or back issues or you're obviously pregnant, you probably shouldn't be on roller coasters anyway. If you have any issues with stuff like that, then maybe it's not for you. But otherwise, I think you should be good. It's a very fun ride. I would absolutely recommend, Brandon, going out of your way to check it out. There really is no other reason to come to Connecticut, to be honest with you. If you're coming just for Lake Compounds, which now wouldn't be the time. I mean, not to say that you're coming within the next month. I think they close after Halloween. I did not go this year. I have not been in 2 years. I like to go every year or every other year, but I just couldn't make it this year. We went to a different amusement park, like I said. But anyway, Boulder Dash is fucking awesome. The whole park is really cool. I think it's in Bristol, Connecticut, like right around the corner from ESPN headquarters. So I don't think you can tour ESPN, but if you want to see that, it's like, oh shit, I'm an ESPN fan. I'm a sports guy. You can check that out as well. But yeah, Lake Compounds is awesome. That's one of my favorite parks. There's a lot of stuff to do. They have the swings. I'm a big swing guy. Not Cesaro swing, but just swings where you get thrown around to those things. Those are really fun. They have, some other roller coasters that go, upside down, go backwards, your standard stuff. And they have, shows and stuff like that as well. I think I've seen a magic show there once or twice when I was a kid. But yeah, I know I've gone on a tangent now about roller coasters for quite a while, but my point being is that Lake Compounds, very good park. Boulder Dash, great ride. Just be weary, again, if you have like health issues or if you have a headache that day or whatever the case might be. If you're not 100%, it may not be a good idea to go on. You gotta be at 100% because otherwise you're gonna be thrown for a loop. Not literally, because there are no loops on this ride, which is what I like about it. Very fast, a lot of turns, quite a few drops, but it's a lot of fucking fun. Thomas B, not also from Facebook, because he's our only Facebook question this week. Thomas's question was, do you prefer the concept of a number one contenders match, as we have seen in the WWE and other places, or do you think going off of wins and losses, as we see in pro sports, is the best way for AEW to go when making championship matches? I think a bit of both works. So like I know they announced Cody as the number one contender to the AEW World Title, the Full Gear show in a few months. I think they should have waited until the AEW debut on TNT next month to announce that match. I know they wanted to announce it before tickets went on sale on Friday. I get it, but like they already announced Moxley and Omega for the show. They did not need to announce Cody and Jericho out of nowhere. Not that it feels random, because it does make sense. Cody has not been pinned in singles competition yet. He beat Dustin Rhodes at Double or Nothing, went to a draw with Darby Allin at Fyter Fest, lost the tag team match at Fight for the Fallen, but it was not a singles match, and then he beat Shawn Spears at All Out a few weeks ago. So it does make sense to do Cody and Jericho at the next pay-per-view. Obviously, Cody's not winning, so anyone with the idea that, oh, Cody's going to put the belt on himself like a fucking mark, it's WCW all over again, get the fuck over yourselves. That's obviously not going to happen. I would highly doubt that Cody Rhodes is going to become the next world champion 2 or 3 months after Jericho wins it to become the inaugural world champion. I don't think that really makes much sense. And it seems like they're doing stuff that makes sense, so I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, though, Cody got the spot based off his win-loss record. Now, he lost the tag team match at Fight for the Fallen, but Tony Khan's logic was he's 2-0 and then 1, a draw at Fyter Fest. That's his current record. 2 wins, no losses, and 1 draw in singles competition. I mean, Adam Page won 3 or 4 matches before winning the champion, or before going for the championship at All Out. Then again, he got beat. I'm sure other people have gone undefeated so far. I would really have to think about it, but maybe not. Maybe other people have either gone 1-1 or have always lost. I'm not sure. Cody's had an impressive record so far, but on 3 or 4 shows, that's not saying a lot. Cody winning a number one contenders match against like a Sammy Guevara, which maybe that probably would not make much sense just because Sammy Guevara, I don't know, has won any matches so far in AEW, at least on his own. He may have won that 6-man tag team match a couple months ago. I don't think he did. I think he lost that one. I don't know. I don't remember. But, yeah, so they could do number one contenders matches. Like, it's not like AEW hasn't done number one contenders matches. Like, the Casino Battle Royales at Double or Nothing with the men and then at All Out with the women were essentially number one contenders matches. Because, the winner of those matches earned a spot in the title match, whether it was Paige at All Out or the women's one on the first AEW show on TNT for the AEW Women's Championship. So those were technically number one contenders matches. Now, obviously, Rio had to beat Hakura, so whatever that woman's name was. Rio had to win her match at All Out to earn her spot in the match as well. So that was also technically a number one contenders match. So it's not like they're not doing that type of stuff on the AEW shows. I think a bit of both is great because having someone lose like 12 consecutive matches and then winning a number one contenders match is just stupid because their win-loss record is so bad that why would we view them as a threat to that championship? How have they earned that shot if they've lost so much in the last number of months? It just doesn't make any sense. Like Omega to go for any championship right now would be comical because he lost to Chris Jericho at Double or Nothing and then again to Pac at All Out. So for Omega to go for the championship at any point in the near future would be laughable. So they could do number one contenders matches, but the number one contenders matches should feature people who have strong win-loss records, and the wins and losses should matter. So I do agree that they should go off wins and losses, but that doesn't mean they need to get rid of, number one contenders matches altogether. Because just announcing a contender right off the bat based off their win-loss record, I mean, can sometimes be interesting. A lot of times people want to see people battle it out to earn that shot at the championship. And number one contenders matches, when not done, constantly, can be interesting. They can be fun. They can be exciting. So I would dial it back from when like WWE does them. It seems like they do them a lot, or just have them beat the fucking champion to earn a title shot. I hate when they do that. They do that all the fucking time when they have the champion get pinned by someone and that person earns a title shot. Like on Monday's Raw with Alexander and Styles, it kind of makes sense, but they do that all the time. Fire and Desire did it when they beat Bliss and Nikki Cross to earn their tag team title shot at Clash of Champions. I feel like we've seen it a million times, and it just makes the champion look like shit. It makes their championship look like, worthless. It makes their championship look like a fucking prop. So a bit of both, I would say a mix of both, is definitely the route they should take. Farron's53, Jared's question from Twitter. What would your dream card be for an NXT US versus NXT UK takeover? That's a great question. Now, I think that kind of stems from the announcement the other day that, interestingly enough, there will not be an NXT takeover the same weekend as Royal Rumble next year. Now, I would love the fact that they would run the takeovers the same weekend as the Big Four pay-per-views, just because, like, if I went to the Rumble a few years ago with RJ, we got to go to TakeOver the night before and then Rumble the next night. Or WrestleMania, same thing. Or whenever I've been to SummerSlam. I love that. But it doesn't look like they're going to be doing that starting in 2020 with NXT kind of becoming its own thing, beginning next week when it goes 2 hours on USA. Now, they've said before that takeovers are remaining on the WWE network, and that won't be like a USA network thing, which would be kind of cool, but I think it belongs on the WWE network. That's not a thing you put on TV, at least in my opinion. But anyway, I'm not sure when that will be, but his question stems from not only that announcement, but the announcement that a Worlds Collide show will be replacing it on that Saturday instead. So I don't know if that's going to be a live thing. In the past, they've recorded the Worlds Collide matches and shows and stuff like that at the Access, Royal Rumble Access, WrestleMania Access. It looks like it will become its own event starting next year, which is kind of cool because the shows were always good. They were not must-see by any means, but for what they were, for additional network content, I thought they were entertaining and gave us some fresh, new, innovative matchups. We'll see what it brings. But yeah, an NXT US versus NXT UK takeover. As I don't think it's going to be a takeover, but as a takeover, I'm saying, I think that's not what this is going to be. But if you're saying that on the off chance that they did do something like this, it doesn't have to be that weekend, what would it look like? Now, again, I'm going off of the current rosters and who I think will be around at that point in time. I mean, one of these matches is like, okay, so if they were to do an NXT US versus NXT UK takeover in 6 months and 6 to 8 months, a lot of these people will not still be in NXT. A lot of them will either be on the main roster or on NXT US, because some people from NXT UK switch over and vice versa. So let's say this takeover happened this weekend. This is what my card would look like. I would do Undisputed Era versus Imperium. Now, we have seen Undisputed Era versus British Strong Style before, and they had a great feud, great series of matches in 2018. You could always revisit that. I contemplated doing that, but I felt like Imperium and Undisputed Era, it's a match we've never seen before, and both factions have 4 members, so it makes sense. You can do Walter, Fabian Eichner, Marcel Bartel, and Alexander Wolf versus Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. It's 2 heel factions, but I think it'd be a lot of fun. Pete Dunne, he's still technically, I guess he's kind of part of the NXT regular roster now, not so much NXT UK. But to me, he still represents NXT UK. So I'm gonna group him in with those people. Pete Dunne versus Matt Riddle. That's a match. I don't know if they've ever clashed before on the independent scene. I'm sure they have, but that match would be fucking awesome. This is the match I would be like, okay, we probably would not see this in 6 months from now, because I imagine one, if not both of the guys from NXT will be on the main roster by that point. But anyway, Ciampa and Gargano, DIY respectively, taking on Mustache Mountain. I feel like that would be a fucking banger of a match. Killian Dane from NXT taking on Bomber Dave Mastiff from NXT UK. I feel like that'd be a great hoss battle. You could always replace Dane with Keith Lee. Keith Lee versus Mastiff would be a lot of fun as well. I just feel like Mastiff and Dane would have a better dynamic, with Dane being the heel and Mastiff being the babyface, but that's just me. The women's match, in a match we have seen before, but it ended on a countout, so there is some unfinished business there. But Shayna Baszler versus Toni Storm. And again, I feel like Toni Storm will be NXT normal bound before long. But assuming she's still on NXT UK in a little bit, that could be a match that makes sense. The two top women in their respective promotions, promotions, quote unquote. And then finally, that's 5 matches. If they had to have a 6th additional match, usually the takeovers have 5, but let's say they threw in a bonus 6th match on the card, like the NXT UK takeover did a couple weeks ago in Cardiff. Velveteen Dream versus Jordan Devlin, I feel like would be a great match. Actually, I think that's a match we have seen before. I think Dream beat Devlin in the finals of that Worlds Collide tournament earlier this year over Royal Rumble weekend. And that was a great match too. But I feel like they're like 2 upper mid-card stars in their respective promotions, again, quote unquote. But that would be a really fun dynamic as well. So that would be my card for an NXT US versus NXT UK takeover. Next couple of questions come from @Iwagu91. Their first question is, do you expect Roderick Strong to beat Velveteen Dream to complete the Undisputed Era, all becoming champions? I do see that happening. It's their first show on USA. They're probably going to want to open it up with a title change to send the message that anything can happen on NXT TV. And it should happen. I mean, Roderick Strong should become champion. All members of Undisputed Era should hold the gold. It didn't happen in Toronto, but it can happen now on NXT on USA Network. So I do fully expect that to happen. And Dream could possibly get called up. I've seen people say that. I would keep him down in NXT for a little while longer. I really don't see the rush in bringing him up to Raw or SmackDown. SmackDown might be the better home. I've seen people say Raw, but realistically, if you brought up Velveteen Dream tomorrow, then what would you do with the guy? The Velveteen Dream. Did I say what did I say? Did I say Velveteen Dream? I don't know. If you brought up Velveteen Dream tomorrow, what would you do with the guy? Would you put him in the mid-card scene? Would you have him chase the United States Championship? Would you have him chase the Intercontinental Championship? It's hard to say. I really don't see the rush in bringing him up. I feel like he'd be on the main roster. He'd have a good first week or two, and then he'd be on main event before long, facing fucking Mojo Rawley. Because the same exact thing happened to EC3. Obviously, Velveteen Dream, in my opinion, is a bigger star than EC3, but EC3 is also very talented, and they have done jack shit with the guy since he has been brought up to Raw. So I would keep him right where he is right now, at least for the time being in NXT. I know he won't have a championship by that point, but again, what would you do with him? I feel like Raw has enough heels, and he shouldn't be brought up as a babyface. SmackDown might be the better home, but I feel like Johnny Gargano, who has absolutely done fucking everything in NXT, would be a better fit to go to SmackDown ahead of Velveteen Dream. But again, that's just my opinion. His second question, should WWE, back then WWF, had given Owen Hart the option to do the stunt instead of having him do it, back at Over the Edge 1999? I don't know the whole story. I can't really speak to this. I don't want to come across like a dumbass or as ignorant in answering this question incorrectly. I know I've heard this story before from Dave Meltzer and other people, other members of the Hart family on other podcasts and stuff like that. So maybe I've heard it before, I just forgot, I don't know. But if he was given the option and they said you have to do it, then that's fucking terrible. Then obviously they're in the wrong there. But if not that they didn't give him an option, but let's say they said, okay, so we're going to have you do this, which probably wasn't all too smart to begin with, because anything can happen, shit can go wrong, it's kind of unsafe, all things really have to go right in order for that to work. I would not have done the stunt anyway, so yeah, WWE is partially to blame for his death, absolutely. I mean, they were responsible for it, they were having him do something for the show that they didn't really need to do, but if they said, hey, we're going to have you do this, and Owen Hart didn't say anything, whether he said, okay, I'll do it, or, maybe if he felt uncomfortable, if he was that uncomfortable about not doing it, like, I really don't want to do this, then he should have said something. I'm not saying he's at fault at all. I mean, the guy fucking died, obviously. But if he did say something like, I don't think this is a great idea, I don't feel comfortable, this doesn't look too safe, blah, 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 then, WWE is 100% at fault for that. But if they said, okay, we're going to have you do this, And he didn't really say anything. He kind of went along with it. He's like, okay, I don't care, or I won't say anything that I feel like I'm, nervous about it, whatever. Then he should have spoken up. He absolutely should have said something if he did not feel comfortable about doing it. But again, I wasn't there. I don't know. Maybe that did happen. I have no clue. So that's not really a question for me to answer. It's not really a finger-pointing game. It's been 20 years. Again, I'm sure I've heard this story before from another source, whether it be a Dave Meltzer or someone who really knows this situation incredibly well, or a member of the Hart family. I can't tell you off the top of my head right now. But for something so serious, to answer your question in a nutshell, yes. They should have said, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. They may have implied it. Maybe if he said, I don't want to do it, they didn't have to say, okay, if you don't want to do it, just let us know. They probably just said, we're going to have you do this, implying that, okay, if you don't want to do it, just say something. And he didn't say anything, and then he did it anyway. I'm not sure. I feel like it may have been one of those type of situations, but again, I'm probably wrong. So, those are my 2 cents on the situation. The next question comes from also Iwagu91. Their third question was, if Marty Scurll does leave Ring of Honor this year, do you expect him to join All Elite Wrestling? I do. I absolutely do. I know there's talk of him, maybe going to New Japan full-time. He's been over there for a few years now. Sticking with Ring of Honor, going to WWE/NXT, which would be cool, but, AEW, his best friends are running the company. He probably would have gone if his contract that expired a year ago. But he's been a trooper, though. He has not threatened to quit, as far as we know anyway. He's done all of his dates. He hasn't sat his contract out because he's not happy in Ring of Honor. The guy's been an ultimate, consummate professional throughout this entire process. I fully believe he is AEW bound when his contract expires, reportedly in November. So he could be, I don't know when it expires, it might be November 1st. If it was November 1st, we could see Marty Scurll debut at that Full Gear show, which would be fucking awesome. Maybe he comes out after Jericho beats Cody and Scurll confronts Chris Jericho. I don't know. I think something like that would be awesome. The crowd would go nuts for it. But, I do expect him to join AEW, whether it's right after he leaves Ring of Honor, right after his contract expires, whether it be at the onset of 2020, I don't know. But I think sooner rather than later, he will be in AEW. I feel like that's the right place for him. WWE would be cool. His girlfriend, I think they're still together, Marty Scurll and Deonna Purrazzo. She's in NXT. But then again, Adam Cole's in NXT, Britt Baker's in AEW. That didn't stop her from signing with AEW, and I believe she had an offer from WWE as well. So that's not everything. I'm sure I'm sure that's part of it, but I'm sure Cole and Britt Baker see each other all the time. They obviously both live in Florida. I think they live together. NXT's current schedule, they only really tour on the weekends, and they tape TV once a month. That changes next week. But even then, they're not on the road constantly as much as the main roster is. And Britt Baker, they're not doing a ton of shows right now. They have no shows until AEW arrives on TNT in a couple weeks. So for right now, they're probably seeing a whole hell of a lot of each other. And they both have their shows on Wednesdays, and that might change when Adam Cole inevitably gets called up to the main roster. But for now, I think it's a pretty sweet deal for both of them. And the same thing could happen with Purrazzo and Marty Scurll if Marty Scurll goes to AEW. I'm not saying that's everything, but I'm sure it's a pretty big factor, being with your significant other. I'm sure that's important to both of them, but I do think AEW is where Scurll belongs. I wouldn't complain if he showed up in NXT. I think that'd be pretty fucking cool. But that being said, I feel like he has a better shot of getting over and succeeding in AEW by a long shot compared to WWE, which is very hit or miss. They might push him to the moon, or they might just sign him to get him away from AEW and then proceed to do nothing with him. So honestly, I do think he will end up in AEW, and I think he should go to AEW. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, his question was, who do you think is switching shows in the draft next month? I got to remember who's on which show to begin with, but to keep the Zayn Nakamura pairing alive, I would move Sami Zayn back to SmackDown. I've seen people say maybe Daniel Bryan goes to Raw, which I could see making sense, just because I guess Daniel Bryan, at least not for right now, is not involved in the whole Roman thing. So, I don't know. I think he's better off on SmackDown, but moving him to Raw would not be a bad idea. He has not been on Raw since he got cleared to compete again about a year and a half ago. So it would be an interesting change of pace for him. Roman, I could see them moving him back to Raw. I would keep him right where he is on SmackDown if AJ is going to remain on Raw. And Rollins and all those other people. Joe on SmackDown would be cool to see. They haven't done a ton with him on Raw since he moved. He's done well for himself, but I feel like he's just a better fit on SmackDown. Miz, I keep forgetting, is on Raw. I feel like he's more of a member of the SmackDown roster than he is Raw. I would move him back to SmackDown. People moving from SmackDown to Raw, Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler and Rude are a thing currently. Move him to Raw. The Revival to SmackDown. They're going for the SmackDown Tag Team titles anyway, so why not? I could see maybe Heavy Machinery moving from SmackDown to Raw if they want to switch things up with them. They don't really have many other tag teams on SmackDown. I wouldn't split up the New Day because I still do think they could do Kofi and Big E if they wanted to at some point, so I wouldn't do that quite yet. I'm trying to think who else they could have switch shows because I'm trying to remember who's on which shows to begin with. From SmackDown to Raw, like I think Buddy Murphy's fine right where he is. Chad Gable, same thing. Aleister Black, they've done nothing with the guy. Maybe they move him to Raw, but then again, they would have to move Andrade too because he's, with Zelina, and Zelina's married to Aleister Black, so they would have to have him switch shows as well, which might not be the worst thing. Finn Balor, I've heard, maybe he'll move back to Raw to be with the whole OC thing. I think that'd be pretty cool. I'd probably move Balor. But yeah, those are a few of the moves I would make. Probably nothing too major. Bobby Lashley, when he comes back, I would put him on SmackDown. I feel like they have way too many heels right now on Raw. So I would move him over to SmackDown. That's really about it. Drew, maybe put him on SmackDown if it's not Bobby Lashley. Drew, I think, has already feuded with Rollins a bunch of times. He might just be better off on SmackDown as a top healer over there. So, yeah, those are a few of the moves I would make. Next question, also from Jeremy. Do you think Gran Metalik should get a singles push on Raw or SmackDown after his match with Rey Mysterio? I mean, the guy is so talented, but obviously his biggest weakness is that he barely speaks English. His English is not great. I don't think I've heard him cut one fucking promo since he signed with the company 3 years ago. Now, that may be a case of them not giving him any opportunities to speak, but from what I've heard, his English is not great. It's hard to understand him, and that's just what it is. I'm not saying, learn English, but there is just a language barrier there. It's tough. It's tough to push someone like that who doesn't speak any English at all. Andrade's English isn't great, but you can at least mostly understand him when he cuts a promo. Gran Metalik, I don't think I've ever heard him cut one promo, which is why I think he's such a good fit with the rest of the Lucha House Party, which has run its course by this point, but I think they're such a great fit because they all kind of complement each other. Metalik is a great wrestler. Dorado is great. He's finally getting over on his own. Kalisto and Metalik have both said on Twitter, respectively, they're on their way out. They're eyeing free agency, so they might try to push Metalik to get him to re-sign, which I don't think he will. I think he's on his way out, as he probably should be. If they're not going to put him in Cruiserweight Championship contention, really, what else can you do with the guy? I like the guy. I met him a couple years ago. He's a really good wrestler. But let's face it, he's great. He had a great match with Ray on Raw. Let's push him. You can't do that with everybody. Where was Buddy Murphy this week? That guy's a great wrestler. I would rather see Buddy Murphy get pushed over Gran Metalik and Chad Gable. Hell, even Shelton Benjamin, even though his time has kind of come and gone. I feel like he has a better shot of getting over than Gran Metalik at this point. He was a great wrestler again, but I feel like he kind of has a ceiling in 205 Live because he can't cut any promos. He can't speak English very well. So he might just be better off on 205 Live. That's what I would do. I would keep him there. But, yeah. So, the guy's great. I really enjoyed the Rey Mysterio match, but there's so many other people they're not doing anything with that I would rather see get a push over him that I don't think giving him a push on Raw or even SmackDown, which has, the land of opportunity, whatever, I don't think that's a great idea. His next question, after SmackDown, are you on board with Eric Rowan versus Roman Reigns? Currently, no. I did appreciate the angle they did on SmackDown. I thought it was well done. They made Rowan look more dominant than he's ever been, probably. He's only really gotten a shot at single stardom, maybe once before, maybe 5 years ago. Remember the infamous, stairs match? The steel stairs match with Big Show at TLC 2014? That he proceeded to lose and get buried from. Remember, people were like, don't jump to him. He's not getting buried. Why would you say that? He's not getting buried, blah, blah, blah. They're protecting him in defeat. And then they did just that. He got fucking buried. I think a lot of us can tell from a mile away what's a burial and what's not. What to jump to conclusions about and what to not jump to conclusions about. People saying that Kushida's doomed on 205 Live, Give me a fucking break, people. We don't know if it's a full-time move to 205 Live yet. I don't think he's done in NXT. I don't really want to see him on the main roster right now. He'd get buried 6 feet under on main event if he moved to Raw or SmackDown. You would never even see him on SmackDown, so I think 205 Live is a good place for him, but I know that's besides the point. But what I'm trying to get at here is the whole, jumping to conclusions thing when it comes to Rowan and him getting buried a couple years ago. That was a fucking burial. And the guy's really just not that good to begin with. He's really not that good. The angle, again, was well done. I just simply do not see Eric Rowan as a threat to Roman Reigns. I don't see the match being very good. I know it's no DQ. I hope they surprise me. But from what I've seen of Rowan so far in the last 5-6 years on his own in tag team matches, he's just not that good. Him being the ultimate opponent for Roman Reigns, he was the attacker the entire time, is just fucking dumb. Nobody cares. It's just stupid. Because the guy, he's a loser. He was a loser before recently. Now we're all of a sudden supposed to take him seriously? I don't think so. Again, I appreciate the effort they put forth in making me care about the match on Tuesday SmackDown. As of right now, though, I have zero expectations for that match on Sunday. Absolutely none. Maybe they'll exceed those zero expectations, but despite the effort put into the build for the match over the last couple of weeks, I still do not care. I really do think that it'll end up being Daniel Bryan being the one to be revealed, but behind the whole thing. Whether it was a ruse, I maintain that. Alexis called me crazy. People probably listening are thinking, this what a psycho. Like, how can Daniel Bryan still be involved? Would it make any sense? Probably not, because Eric Rowan attacked Daniel Bryan on last week's show, but we've seen stranger things, not the show, in WWE before. I think Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns, not Eric Rowan, is the ultimate feud on SmackDown, not Rowan and Roman. So I'm not on board with the match. Maybe they'll produce a good match on Sunday. Who knows? But on a show with already 12 matches, I know Roman can't. I mean, he already missed out on SummerSlam, so to miss out on another show would be weird. But this belongs in the fucking pre-show because I just don't care. Jeremy's next question. I'm all Chad Gable on this, and then he lets becoming King of the Ring go to his head, and he slowly starts becoming a delusional heel. What are your thoughts? I mean, that could work. I mean, it depends. I mean, I do see him becoming King of the Ring. Maybe that's wishful thinking and Baron Corbin will end up winning. I don't really see it benefiting Baron Corbin. I think this could do a lot for a guy like Chad Gable. Make a star out of the dude after all the impressive performances he's had in recent weeks. That being said, though, it depends how well he gets over. The crowd went nuts for him last week on SmackDown during that match with Andrade. He got over as an underdog, and he got a great reaction. He didn't get a big reaction this week, but he got another big win over Shane McMahon. So anyway, what do they do? What do they do with Chad Gable if he becomes King of the Ring? If he doesn't get over with the King of the Ring thing, I would rather have a babyface King of the Ring for once. And yeah, technically he would win it as as a babyface. He would win King of the Ring as a babyface. But you're saying turn him heel afterward and become a delusional, like, I don't know, Napoleon or something, like the Napoleon complex because he's so short. Maybe he becomes a psycho out of that. I don't know. I think he's better off as a babyface, but we have seen him as a heel before in NXT with Jason Jordan as part of American Alpha, and it worked then too. He was a bit goofier, so maybe it works, but I see a lot of similarities between Kurt Angle and Chad Gable. I'm not the first one to say that, but I feel like Chad Gable can be money, and Kurt Angle was a great heel. He was an amazing heel. I think Chad Gable can have similar success if he went down that route. And he just doesn't let the wrestling do the talking for him. Like, he's a great wrestler, but can he talk on the mic? Yeah, he might be better on the mic if he was a heel, though. A lot like AJ Styles. His babyface promos are okay. His heel promos, as seen on Monday's Raw, are so much better as a heel than they were as him, when he was a babyface. But anyway, that's not a bad idea. It could work. I think they need more baby faces on SmackDown. Maybe if you went after Kofi in the championship, that would be interesting. It would be something different, if nothing else. If you told me a year ago that we'd be getting Kofi Kingston and Chad Gable, with Chad Gable as the King of the Ring, with Kofi as the WWE Champion for the WWE Championship, I would have called you crazy, but that sounds like it'd have a lot of potential. That would have a lot of potential to be great if handled the right way. They must be going somewhere with the whole short thing. If they're doing this as a way to get him over as an underdog, I guess. But maybe he uses that to his advantage and he goes heel. I don't know. It really depends on after the roster shakeup, what brand needs baby faces and what brand needs heels, or both. So I would keep him as a babyface for the foreseeable future. And if he's not getting over then, despite winning King of the Ring, then I would turn him heel. Because I think to build him up as a babyface, to get this great reaction with him winning King of the Ring, to flush that down the toilet by turning him heel, I feel like would be counterproductive. So I would stick with him as a babyface for now, but that could work at some point down the road. At Slipknot Bullet V, their question was, if Randy Orton wins the WWE Championship, could you see Kevin Owens being the one to take the title from him? Yeah, so my prediction now is that Randy Orton becomes champion on Sunday. My original prediction a few weeks ago was, okay, Kofi is going to retain, why wouldn't he, blah, blah, blah. I think this is where Orton takes the championship, just because after what we saw on Tuesday, Kingston once again stood tall over Orton. And not only that, but we have Hell in a Cell next month. Now, Bray Wyatt has already confirmed he's pretty much going for the WWE title, or rather the Universal Championship, at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. So Kofi and Wyatt are not feuding, as at one point was speculated. People were saying, oh, maybe we have Bray Wyatt and Aleister Black, and for the WWE title, as cool as that would be, they could still do that over the Universal Championship if they wanted to. But anyway, with Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, Kofi beating Orton again would end the feud, which is fine. It's been a really good feud. I don't know who you would move on to, though, after that, because they've kind of exhausted all of their options. Kofi's already beaten Daniel Bryan. He's already beaten Kevin Owens. He's beaten Dolph Ziggler and Samoa Joe. He's beaten a lot of the biggest heels on both brands. Orton might be it. Orton might be the last guy for Kofi to defend against successfully and then lose to. So with Hell in a Cell next month, I think they should continue Kofi and Orton going into that show just because it makes sense. Their feud's been going on long enough, almost 10 years. But especially recently, it makes sense for them to face off in a Hell in a Cell match on that show. To have Kofi win again, or not again because he didn't win at SummerSlam, but if he wins on Sunday, what earns Orton another shot at the championship? Nothing. Now, if they had Kofi win at SummerSlam, but then had this match go to the draw that we saw at SummerSlam, or, if they had Kofi win at SummerSlam and had this match go to a double countout like we saw at SummerSlam, then that might make sense, but they did that at SummerSlam. They can't do another non-finish here. If they did, that's bullshit. They need a decisive winner for this show. And I think it's going to be Randy Orton. I think Orton wins on Sunday, and then Kofi takes the championship back from him in Hell in a Cell. They could have Orton retain over Kofi, but I feel like it completely negates the story they're telling here, that, Orton held Kofi down for 10 years, and you're not WWE Championship material, and then Kofi can't beat Orton ultimately. Again, I feel like it sends the wrong message, so I do think Orton wins Sunday. Kofi gets the belt back in October. To answer your question, I don't see Orton holding the championship for any substantial period of time. And then Kevin Owens beating him for the belt. I don't see that happening. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I feel like Kofi losing to Orton and not getting his win back would be a mistake. Just with the story they've been telling in the last couple of months, 10 years, whatever. So I don't see that happening. Then it also begs the question at that point, who else do you have Kofi defend against? I don't know. I would turn Big E heel at that point. They would have to drop the SmackDown Tag Team titles first. But I would turn Big E heel and then I guess New Day's still making enough money as a trio, so maybe not. I think a lot of people gave up on that idea months ago, but I think it could still happen as we near the 5-year anniversary of New Day and WWE. We could see Big E turn heel after the Orton feud is over on Kofi, and then Big E is the one to take that championship from Kofi Kingston. So that's what I would like to see. Owens and Orton is not a bad idea, but as a title feud, it could work. Owens has to get rid of this fucking Shane McMahon feud first because it's been dragging on forever. But yeah, that's just not what I see happening, though. At the _Durbinator, his question was, what do you believe should be the next step in the Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon storyline? So kind of piggybacking off that last question here. Great timing. Perfect segue. So they're not facing off on Sunday, obviously. Shane McMahon fired Kevin Owens on Tuesday's SmackDown, which marks the third time that Kevin Owens has been fired/quit from WWE in storyline in the last 18 months. He got fired by Shane initially, or Daniel Bryan rather, before WrestleMania 34. He quit Raw when he moved to Raw in the fall of last year. And then he got fired on Tuesday. So Kevin Owens just cannot maintain the job to save his life, apparently, in WWE. Despite the fact that he recently signed like a 5-year deal with the company about, earlier this year, last year, whatever. So he's not going anywhere, clearly. he teased on Twitter going to NXT, and with NXT moving to Wednesday nights next Wednesday, live, I think next Wednesday would be it. People were saying when they first got fired, him and Sami Zayn about a year and a half ago, that they should show up in NXT because they showed up on Raw that one time. Despite being previously SmackDown superstars, they went to Raw the night after WrestleMania, and I thought it was cool they switched shows because they weren't contracted, technically, to one brand or the other at that point. And then they ended up going to Raw before they ever returned to NXT. But that was when NXT was taped. It was a little different. It never happened. We could see it happen now. Now that NXT is live, there's no spoilers. It's only next week. So they can keep Kevin Owens off the show again. They kept him off the show last week. So keep him off the show this week to sell the firing. Don't have him come back like Stone Cold Steve Austin, like we've seen that a million fucking times. Have him sell the firing, and then have him show up in NXT. Maybe he goes to NXT briefly. I think that would be awesome. He teased it on Twitter by posting the numbers of the letters that NXT are in the alphabet. So that's what that meant. I didn't really decipher that until someone pointed it out to me in the comments of his tweet and like the replies to his tweet. So I thought that was kind of clever. But yeah, I would have him go to NXT. That's what I would do. I mean, obviously, ultimately, he needs to give Shane McMahon his comeuppance by beating Shane again, whether it be at Hell in a Cell, and I think that will happen. But honestly, I mean, he should be Shane McMahon at Hell in a Cell. That's where their feud started 2 years ago. It makes sense. The feud should have wrapped up at SummerSlam, whatever. But wrap up the feud there, have Kevin Owens beat the shit out of him on that show, beat him, be done with it, take Shane off TV for the foreseeable future, if not longer than that. But in the meantime, though, the immediate next chapter in this storyline, the next step, next week, have him show up in NXT. I feel like it would generate a lot of buzz. The crowd would go nuts. It'd be a really cool moment for that first show on NXT on USA. It would make sense. It wouldn't be random, like some other main roster guy arriving in NXT, if it's not a full-time move. For Kevin Owens, it's a one-time thing, and it makes sense because he just got fired from SmackDown, and he's looking for a job. So I think it makes perfect sense, and I would like to see it happen come next Wednesday. At noob_n_co1991, their question was, what are your thoughts on Asuka, who recently launched her own YouTube gaming channel? Will she take time off from television? And what storylines will we see when Asuka gets back on TV? A feud with Charlotte Flair or a feud with Ronda Rousey? Well, a feud with Ronda Rousey would be awesome if Ronda was around, but she's not and likely won't be for the foreseeable future. They took her profile off of WWE.com and put it in the alumni section, which is never a good sign. Now, they may be selling the fact that she's gone, but she was on the Raw Superstars page for about 6 months up until recently. So I don't know, despite her leaving after WrestleMania, so I don't know what's going on with that. I think she will be back ultimately, but maybe they didn't want to make people think that she absolutely will be back. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind that was. We're not getting Asuka versus Ronda Rousey anytime soon is what I'm trying to say. That's not happening. That being said, Asuka and Charlotte would make sense. They had that mini feud before WrestleMania 34, never followed up on that. Asuka has never beaten Charlotte. They had that match for the SmackDown Women's Championship at the SmackDown that I was at earlier this year before Mania. Charlotte beat her for the belt, and Asuka apparently was never concerned with getting the belt back. She never went for the championship again after that. I don't think Charlotte should beat Bayley on Sunday, but if she did and they moved away from Bayley in the title picture, which I don't think they should now that she's a heel, I think that'd be a dumb move. Charlotte and Asuka would make sense as a potential title program on that brand for that championship. I mean, they technically still have her with Kairi Sane, the Kabuki Warriors, but it's been such a fucking waste of Asuka and Kairi Sane because they've done nothing in this tag team. It's been a complete waste of time. The division's a joke. Their tag team's a joke. It could have been something great, but they've done nothing since they joined forces a few months ago. So I would split them back up. I know they need more teams in that division, but they've already lost the tag team. They failed to win the tag team titles and after SummerSlam. You might as well just split them up at this point. I heard people say, maybe Kairi Sane goes back to NXT. Asuka can go back to NXT. I really don't want to see either of them back in NXT. They kind of did everything they could in NXT for as long as they were there. I would rather see Kairi Sane or Asuka or both go on to challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship. They need more faces in that title picture that aren't Charlotte, Flair, and Bayley. Now, they had Ember Moon. The feud didn't really work out too well. But Asuka and Kairi Sane would be a breath of fresh air in the championship picture. I didn't even know she started her own gaming channel. I had honestly no clue about that. I don't think that's why she's off TV. I mean, Xavier Woods does his gaming channel. He's on TV every single week. So I'm not really sure Not really sure what that has to do with anything, but I guess I'll check it out. It might be interesting. I guess she's a big gamer. I did not know that. But when she gets back, when they are on TV again, I would split her up from Kairi. Having Asuka go heel and feud with Kairi would be interesting. I don't know if people would care, though, just because they have not been on TV together in weeks. So I don't know if anyone would really care about an Asuka and Kairi feud, despite the fact that it would have the potential to be amazing. But a feud with Charlotte at some point would make sense because they have unfinished business from earlier this year and even last year when Charlotte ended her undefeated streak after 2.5 years. At E13A, so this was in response to a tweet I put up during 205 Live that said, the fans want wrestling so bad, and then they get wrestling, and then they start fucking chanting for a baby on 205 Live this week during the main event. And at E13A, Emmanuel's question was, is this a metaphor for wrestling crowd's actual interest in wrestling? At least with that crowd it was. Yeah, absolutely. The same thing happened during Raw on Monday, and I was there for it, and I fucking hate this shit. When people start doing the wave. Now, I get it if it's like that awful main event on the Raw after WrestleMania when it was Rollins and Kofi versus The Bar. Made absolutely no sense. It was a complete waste of time. For that, I get it. But like at WrestleMania during Roman and Drew or Triple H and Batista or during the main event on Raw this week, to do it at that point is just obnoxious. I see that more with New York crowds than any other crowd I've been in front of. Ever. It's just unbelievable to me. And the main event was good. I really enjoyed the main event this week, and I hated the fact that people were doing the fucking wave. It's just so distracting and annoying. And the baby thing on 205 Live was even worse because it was going on during the entire match. Like, fucking pay attention, people. I know you people don't watch 205 Live, but just leave. I know they're there to have a good time, but it's so annoying because those wrestlers deserve better. I just feel like it's disrespectful because those people, Drew Gulak, Graham Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, Tony Nese, they're probably like, fuck these people. Why would I ever want to come back to MSG if they're not going to respect our wrestling, if they're not going to respect our match? Fuck you. I thought that was so obnoxious. Maybe not every wrestling crowd, but some wrestling fans, Daniel Bryan is right, they are so fucking fickle. They're like, oh, we want wrestling, we want this guy, we want opportunities for this guy, oh, we want Alexander to get a push, Viking Raiders, blah, blah, blah. And then they're in the main event of Raw. Cedric Alexander is in the main event of Raw, and people are doing the fucking wave. Fuck you. I hate that shit. I hate that so much. Pick your spots. It's cute sometimes, and right after WrestleMania, if it's, not a good match or whatever, and it's boring, it's a match we've seen a million times before, I get it. I kind of understood why they did it on Raw this week, because we had already seen all those guys earlier on in the evening. But still, I thought that was so annoying, and the baby chant thing on 205 Live was even worse. I'm glad Twitter was up in arms about that too. I saw a lot of people shitting on that crowd for doing that, and I'm glad, because it was so fucking annoying that they would do that. It was just so unnecessary. Anyway, at Scarlet1 from Twitter, we'll finish off with their questions here. First one being, did you hear about Ric Flair fighting WWE over the trademark of The Man? Yeah, I did hear about that. I mean, how could you not? It's just so sad. I'm not going to go into great detail about it. I think other people have done a better job of doing that than I would. But it's just so sad. Dude, people have been calling themselves The Man now for fucking years. Triple H was doing it. I'm the man, I'm the game, I'm the man to be, blah, blah, blah. 10, 15 years ago, Ric Flair wasn't all upset about it then when his buddy Triple H was doing it, or when Seth Rollins was doing it, a few years ago when he was a heel as the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. He was going around calling himself The Man. He was doing that for a while. Ric Flair, he was getting, a steady paycheck from WWE back then because he was on TV, if you remember, back at that point with Charlotte Flair. So, of course, he had no reason to complain about the whole man thing. But he's not on TV anymore. He's probably not getting as big of a check from WWE as he likely would normally, I guess. I don't know, as he would a few years ago if he was on TV constantly as a regular thing. But still, I think it's ridiculous. It's a fucking nickname. It's The Man. It's not like the Beast Incarnate for Brock Lesnar, which is obviously specific to him, or the phenomenal AJ Styles. That's a bit different. And even those people, I don't think would really give a fuck if their nickname was being used. It's the same company. Who gives a shit? Ric Flair just wants royalties because he's out of money. The guy's been divorced now 3 or 4 times. He's in so much debt. It's just sad. It's really sad to see what he's, not resorted to, but I don't know. I don't know what the right word would be, but what it's come to for The Man, for the original. He never even used the Man nickname. That's the thing. He was the Nature Boy. He was never the man, Ric Flair. He was, the man. To be the man, you got to beat the man. But it was never the man. There's a distinct difference there, especially when it comes to copywriting and trademarks and catchphrases. Totally different things. And a judge would fucking laugh you out of the courtroom if you brought that into a trial about that. If you brought that into a courtroom to take someone to trial over something so stupid and something so silly. So I think it's just completely ridiculous and a complete cash grab attempt by Ric Flair, which is, again, so pathetic to just watch because the guy apparently needs money. And in his mind, this is his way of getting that check from WWE, is by taking them to task over the man nickname, which is so fucking stupid. Their next question, did you hear about the New Japan Pro Wrestling Royal Quest show and Kenta's injury? Yeah, I didn't see it, but Kenta had a match with someone on All Out Saturday on the 31st of August. He was seemingly concussed during the match, and they opted to continue the match, which is such a fucking disgrace. That's so unprofessional. And New Japan's such a big promotion. How can they get away with one of their performers getting seriously hurt during one of their matches and continuing on with it? Now, give WWE all the shit that you want, but when they see shit like that, they will stop the fucking match. No matter how serious or how, small it may be, if there's an injury, they stop the match, they give them the attention they deserve, and then they, act accordingly. Whether they continue the match or, at least they stop to check up on the guy. With Kenta, he was seriously hurt, and he continued to wrestle like he wasn't even hurt. And I applaud the guy's ethic and effort and whatever, but the company should have stopped that match. It's fucking ridiculous that they didn't. It was pathetic. How do you continue a match where one of your performers is legitimately hurt? It blows my mind. I thought that was another really ridiculous thing to read about. And yet another ridiculous situation. You're asking me all the questions this week that got me all fired up about these things that piss me off. This is probably the worst of them all this week. Their third question, did you hear about the recent incident at RevPro that forced referee Adam Wilde to retire? Yes, I did hear about this. So I don't know what the follow-up is on it since I first read about it, a few days ago, a week ago, whatever. But I read the guy's tweets, Aaron Wilde. Now, I don't watch RevPro. I have no idea who this guy is. But from reading his tweets, now this is only one side of the story, but this is what happened. He was refereeing a match. He's been a referee there forever. He's been refereeing apparently for like 15 years or something like that. Never had a botched ending until this one match. The show was going way over time, and they had to cut the match early because I guess the show ran so over, that they had to cut the match short. So they botched the ending. Apparently, I don't know if it came off well. I didn't see it. I don't know. The performers, the heels, got so frustrated, I guess, or they just did this for whatever reason. I don't know why. There was no real reason for them to do this. Started legitimately attacking the referee. And this was not planned. It was not part of the show. It was not an angle. They started beating the shit out of the referee, doing moves on them, or doing moves on the referee on him without his approval, without any knowing of it. Maybe the backstage people told the wrestlers to do that, but the referee didn't know. No idea. So he had no idea what was going on. He gets attacked. He gets seriously hurt, and now he can't referee anymore. He had to retire. He had to, indefinitely stop his refereeing duties, is what he said, because he doesn't like the word retire. So he can't referee anymore. He's also a referee for a day job. He's like a baseball or a soccer referee or something like that. I don't know. He does something like that for his day job, and now he can't even do that because he's seriously hurt right now. And so it impacted his regular job and his wrestling job, his side job. He can't do that anymore either because of this heinous attack at the hands of these wrestlers, which is so fucking disgusting. It got my blood boiling. And I know Pete Dunne commented on it on his Twitter a couple days ago, which was good to see. Fuck those people. It was like Josh Bodum or something like that was one of the people responsible for the attack, for attacking this poor referee without his knowing and doing a number on him to the point where he can't referee anymore. It got me so angry to read about that. I hope those people are taken to fucking court for that shit. That is absolutely unexcusable. Inexcusable. That should not happen ever. Ridiculous. So again, you're asking me all the questions this week about shit that pissed me off. But yes, I did hear about all three incidents, and all three of them annoyed me more than the last. The last question is not nearly as bad, from Scarlet One. Not that your questions were bad, but it doesn't have to do with something as negative, I guess I should say. Did you hear NXT's first 2 episodes on USA Network will only air half of the show in favor of the last 2 episodes of Suits? No, I heard that NXT for next week and then the week after. It's not a full-time thing. It's only for the first 2 weeks. I was like, that's so weird. So I guess what they're doing is airing the first episode of NXT on USA, live on USA. The second hour is airing on WWE Network. And I thought that was so weird. I'm like, why are they doing that? And it's because, I guess, according to Scarlet One in this report, that Suits, I guess, is airing its season finale or series finale, whatever. The final 2 episodes are airing while NXT is, debuting on USA that week. The last couple weeks on Wednesdays. And honestly, it's hard to blame USA for that just because, WWE probably decided NXT going to Wednesdays as the last minute thing up until like a few weeks ago. This wasn't in the works for several weeks. They're not going to move one of their biggest shows, Suits, in one of their prime time time slots. After it's been on Wednesdays for so long now, airing at that time, why would they move it for NXT? I don't blame them at all. They probably should have thought this out a little better or waited until October 2nd to move to Wednesdays after Suits was done airing. So I don't know whose fault it is entirely. Probably mostly on WWE more than it is USA. They probably should have thought about that and made that announcement initially as opposed to waiting until a couple days ago to say, hey, the first hour is on USA, but the second hour is on WWE Network. So confusing, but that does add a bit more context and make things, it puts things more in perspective and makes them make more sense. So I understand now why they're doing it. It's still silly. They probably should have thought about that before they moved NXT to Wednesdays, but hell, just wait until October 2nd when AEW moves to TNT. I mean, huzzah! Why not just do that as opposed to this fucking clusterfuck with the first hour on one channel and the second hour on the other? That's just confusing, but the show should be good nonetheless, and I will be tuning in next Wednesday to watch it live. And that's going to do it, guys, for today's episode, edition 302 of #AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, September 11, 2019. Thank you guys, as always, for your support of the show. Greatly appreciate it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, of course, as always, check out #AskGSM, or rather, obviously, hashtag every Wednesday, but also WrestleRant Radio on all the podcast platforms on Thursdays. New episode goes up tomorrow. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, subscribe to the channel for more daily content. I put up all the videos I took at Raw on Monday, on Tuesday, or from Monday on Tuesday, I put the videos up. From the Raw I attended at MSG, all 12 of them are up now if you want to check them out, including that awesome Stone Cold Pop. I'm still getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. It was unreal to be a part of that on Monday night. But yeah, and hopefully at some point, like I said a few weeks ago, we can do a live stream here on the channel. For like the 3,000 subscriber celebration. Thanking you guys for helping me get over 3,500 subscriptions, the subscriber mark, just recently. We hit 3,000 a few months ago. We've already amassed more than 500 more since then, which is unbelievable, unprecedented even. So thanks for that. I appreciate the support of the channel. And yeah, I saw it over the weekend. Very good movie. Maybe we'll talk about stuff like that. I'm going to go see The Joker when that comes out in early October, and then Star Wars in December. And yeah, maybe if we do another live stream soon here on the channel, probably would be like on a weekend night or something like that, like on a random Friday, Saturday night. Then maybe we could talk about movies and wrestling and, TV shows and amusement parks and rides and stuff like that. But until then, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.